Hello, my name is Chameleonish, and today I will be reviewing Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb, Book 3 in the Liveship Trilogy. I have a bunch of thoughts about this book, so let's get started. Warning, there will be spoilers ahead. Beginning with my favorite aspect of this book, which would have to be the characters. Now, I know in the previous two books, the characters have been pretty far down compared to where they were for Farseer Trilogy, but I just think it took some time for me to really warm up to them. This book really had me caring deeply about the characters. Uh, I was so invested in Althea's journey, and Brashen's journey, and Malta's journey, and Wintrow's journey, and like almost all the POV characters except for Kenneth because I hate him. But yeah, I felt really deeply invested in the characters. Another thing that I think doesn't you don't really get to see much of in the Farseer trilogy compared to this trilogy is like how vastly different the POVs are from each other, and like how differently they think about each other, and like how differently their thoughts are. I think that's shown earlier in the more in the earlier books, but I think you can still see it here, and how Malta thinks differently from Althea, who thinks differently. Like they notice different things and focus on different things. Um, so yeah, I definitely really enjoyed the characters in this book. Robin Hobb creates really compelling characters. You love them, you hate them, you feel wishy washy on them. She gets you to feel about the characters, and that's really, really great because that's my favorite part of the book. I read for the characters, which is why the first where are they? The first few books in this trilogy, the first two books, I didn't like them as much because I couldn't get behind the characters as much. So, yeah, I'd have to say the characters were the best part. Now, the second best part was probably between the world and the prose. I'm gonna have to give it to the prose. We didn't have too many new developments in the world building in this book. I mean, the world building is still great. It's still amazing, but I don't think we really learned much about the world in this book. However, the world that we have seen so far continues being amazing. Um, so Robin Hobb's prose is probably my favorite. I also really like George R. Here we go, George R. R. Martin's prose with the Song of Ice and Fire, but I just Robin Hobb's prose is just so good, and I really love her writing. My third favorite aspect was the world. I think this world is incredible for many reasons. Let's talk about a few. Ships, dragons, sea serpents, Bingtown, Chalst, Jamalia, Six Duchies, kinda. They're not really involved in this trilogy. But I think the way everything is brought together and pushes forward the plot, and it all makes sense within the world, and it's done really well. It's illustrated to the audience really well. I think that just the world is incredible. I love the world of the Realm of the Elderlings. We do learn a bit more about how Elderlings come to be, which is very exciting. So, yeah, I love the world. Um, Next, we're going to have to say the worst part of the book for me was definitely the plot slash pacing. Um, as much as I loved the last 300 or so pages, I read them in one day. That seems to be a theme for this series. I could not. It wasn't that the first few hundred pages were bad. It's just they were really slow, and it felt like build up. And build up is fine, but if it just feels like setup, then it's not as fine. And it just felt like setup. And as much as I did love it, that's just not as good as the rest. Granted, it's still like pretty close to the top. Like, well, it's still good. It's not close to the top, but here is the here are the characters. Here's the writing. Here's the world, and then here's the plot, and then down else, and then here's the bottom beneath the camera. So yeah, I'd have to give the plot spacing a 6.5 out of 10, but the characters I'd give like a 9.5 out of 10, and the other stuff I'd give close to a 9. So, and they're all pretty good except for the plot. slash pace. Well, really the pacing, because the plot itself is fine, but the pacing of it is kind of wonky. Despite despite the fact that I love it, like I feel like love can, for a book series at least for me, can really just blind me to some of its faults. But if I step back and I think, is this pacing wonky? The answer is yes, and yeah. Overall, this book made me feel so much. The only thing that I actively disliked about this book was a certain thing that happened with one of the characters, Kenneth, and how what he did to Althea and how everyone else reacted. I think that could have been done differently, I would say. And that's the only thing that I've ever read of Robin Hobbs that I would feel that way about. But I do think everyone just being fine with Kenneth and like thinking of him as still like this good guy despite everything that he did wrong. Like he's not a good person. And I think part of it is that being in his head, I hated him from the start, and just seeing him be revered as like this good person at the end, just kind of it makes you think that um, it's really kind of reminiscent of our world in a way. How like sometimes people can be awful human beings and still get praised for stuff, and that's just a part of the world. But I just I wish it could have been handled differently. But overall, this book made me feel so many things. The ending felt good for the most part, besides the one thing I mentioned with Kenneth. And yeah, I love this series, and I'm a bit sad to be away from it. I'm a bit excited to see what happens next. I don't know if the Rainwilds or Quartet is quite a continuation, but I think this ending was pretty good, pretty satisfying. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give this book a 4.8. It's not quite 5-star territory for me, but I did love it. I loved it, but not quite to the point where it would be 5 stars, if that makes any sense. So yeah, thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.